God in their hearts. Do you know that love? I know so many Christians who are so many people who are actually quite moral. They dot every I, cross every T, and I don't even think they're saved. They're religious and they're moral, but when you begin to talk about the love of God, they don't have a clue as to what you're talking about. Can you honestly say that the love of God has been shed abroad in your heart, and that love compels you to want to follow hard after Jesus and to obey Jesus? He goes on and he says, now this is very, very simple logic. Paul says, I've concluded something. What has he concluded? One died for all, therefore all died. And He died for all. Why? Just to get you out of hell? He died just to fix you? He died just to bring salvation? No, He said He died so that they who live might no longer live for themselves, but for Him who died and rose again on their behalf. I live in Illinois on a farm. And years ago, when I had to leave for Peru, I had to leave my widowed mother there on the farm. And I'll never forget that day saying goodbye to her. And she is crying, and I'm crying. And I said, Mom, I am not my own. I did not choose Peru for myself, but my Master is calling, and I must go. And she said, Son, before you were born, I gave you to God. You are not your own, and you are not mine. You must go. It is no longer your life, but your life belongs to Him. You go where He tells you to go. You do what He tells you to do. And the wonderful thing is, the commandments and callings of Christ are not burdensome. They are a joy for those who have been truly regenerated. They are a joy. You're not your own, Christian. Nothing you have is your own, Christian. You belong to Him. My children belong to Him. My wife belongs to Him. Everything belongs to Him. You'll never be happy, and I'll never be happy until we grow into that truth and learn to obey that truth. He goes on and he says this, verse 16, Therefore from now on we recognize no one according to the flesh. Even though we have known Christ according to the flesh, yet now we know Him in this way no longer. There's something very important here about the gospel that's being said. I think if you look at all the teachings of Paul, you begin to understand something. A little bit more than just what it appears at first. How did Paul first view Jesus in the flesh? As some country bumpkin that came from Nazareth, that had not been taught in the schools where he had been taught, did not wear the finery of a very well-kept rabbi. He had nothing of the appearance of a Messiah or a king, and he judged Him according to the flesh. A madman from some faraway place on the borders of Israel. But then what happened? On the road to Damascus, God opened up the eyes of Paul. And Paul saw Jesus now not according to the flesh, but according to who He truly, truly was. I can remember in my own life when I was a weightlifter, but it's hard to believe that now. There's one time when that's all I did. Now my body's racked with arthritis. I have a degenerative disease in my bones. This bone is dead. That's why they have a cast on it. And I praise God for all that. But I can remember there was a church just right across this little alley from our gym. And on Wednesday night when I would see them all going to church, I would open up the garage doors and the windows of the gym and the door, and I'd turn up the stereo as loud as it would go to AC/DC song, Highway to Hell, just to bother them. On campus at UT and everywhere else, mock the Christians, mock the idea. On and on and on and on. And then one day, God opened up my eyes. And Jesus became most precious. Exceedingly abundantly more precious. You see, you say, well, I look at Jesus and I don't see that much precious there. Do you want to know why? You say, yes. Are you sure? Because it's going to be quite offensive when I tell you why. This is the reason why you look at Jesus and you find nothing that attracts you. Because He is holy, righteous, and good. And if you have not Christ, you are depraved and wicked and hateful. And you no more can like what you see in Jesus than Satan likes when he sees Jesus. You have a wicked, degenerate heart. And the only way you're ever going to think Jesus in His holiness is beautiful is if God comes and changes your heart and gives you a new one. And that is why, my dear friend, I can't lead you in a prayer tonight and expect you to be saved. And I can't manipulate you or get you to hold your hand up. God has to move and supernaturally change your heart. That is all. That is why preaching is so foolish and seems so weak. I can preach my heart out. The pastor can follow me. The other pastors that are here can jump up and follow him. We can preach to the point where blood is coming forth from our throats because we have preached with such passion, and yet you will sit there cold as a stone unless God moves on your behalf. But God often does move on people's behalf. Now, He says, therefore, from now on, verse 16, we recognize no one according to the flesh. This is most beautiful. Most beautiful. I can sit down on a plane to Nigeria. Sit down beside a man who's lived 10,000 miles away from me. Sit down beside him, open up my Bible, and hear him say, "Are you a Christian?" "Yes, sir." And to see his eyes light up, "I'm a Christian too, brother." "Oh, we've got 6 hours here over the Atlantic. Can we talk a bit about him?" You know him. I mean, you never met the man. He's closer than a brother in 1 second. He means more to me than my own flesh. You say, blood's thicker than water? Fine. Spirit's thicker than blood. I mean, I just know him, and he knows me. And you sit down, you fellowship, and you get off and wait in the airport in Brussels, and you can't be separated. Let's go eat together. Talk more. Why? Oh, no more do I notice anyone according to the flesh. What does it matter? Rich man, poor man, black man, white man, red man, yellow man. I suppose a green man I would take notice of. But it doesn't matter anymore. Do you know Christ? And let me tell you this. I spend hours a day studying theology, and my main job in Europe and Africa and everywhere else is teaching theology. But I want to tell you something. They may very well know Christ and not have quite all the theology I have, and I will not judge them or condemn them for it because, sir, what truth do you have that you have not received? And if you have received it, why do you boast as though you haven't? I'll not make a certain doctrine come in and cause division between me and someone. I remember on the mission field, there were people who labeled me, missionaries, said, Paul Washer's a charismatic. I'm no more charismatic than a man on the moon. And I went to him, I said, why are you saying this? Well, you went over to that church over there, that charismatic church, and you preached. I said, yes, I did. Well, there were some charismatic or Assemblies of God or Pentecostal people over there at that meeting, and they asked you to come and instruct them, and you went. I said, yes, I did. And I said, listen to me. I said, men, if I walked across this street right now, or I walked across this entire town on my hands and knees over broken glass to witness to a God-hating, wife-beating, child-molesting, drunk, what would you say about me? They said, well, we'd say you were a man of God. You were evangelizing. So I go across the street to help teach some brothers who have some errors